What's up, guys? You already know it's the one and only Vincent Rojas back with another absolute gobsmack of a review. I'm sorry that this review is coming out on New Year's Eve. I had some trouble with the audio on my videos, but I've since fixed it, so there should be a steady stream of fresh reviews coming in, provided I'm not lazy. I'm also sorry that this review is super late. I still want to review every movie I saw theatrically with a 2024 release date, so hopefully I'll have that done by early January. I will catch up to my regular schedule eventually, I promise. That means that today's review will be on The Watchers, which was written and directed by Ishana Night Shyamalan in her directorial debut and stars Dakota Fanning, Georgina Campbell, Olwen Fouere, and Oliver Finnegan. This movie follows Dakota Fanning's character Mina on a journey to escape a West Irish forest that houses malevolent spirits, along with three strangers whose motives are mysterious. This movie came out back in June, but I'm reviewing it now because I'm a lazy boy and I didn't review it then, so I'm paying for it now. So starting off, you might be wondering why you didn't hear about this movie. Well, that's because it's not that good. However, as the best film critic of all time, next only to Roger Ebert himself, I will mention the positives of this movie first. So what did I like? Well, I think the soundtrack for the movie is actually pretty good. It's a better soundtrack than a movie of this quality deserves, in my opinion. The soundtrack was eerie, but it had enough originality to make it a somewhat not generic suspense, thriller, mystery movie soundtrack. Also, the cinematography is pretty decent. It's strange saying this considering that this is one of my least favorite movies I've reviewed on this channel thus far, but it actually doesn't have half bad camera shots. At the very least, I can tell that some effort was put forth to make this movie not super visually displeasing to the eye. However, this is where one of my first negatives actually comes in, and that's going to be the fact that the movie is lit horribly. A lot of the shots are comprised of dull grays and browns, and overall the movie just has this dirty, desaturated look that to me seems like someone actively turned the brightness down in post-production, which is something you should never have to say about a movie. It just serves to make the production feel more amateurish than it has to be. That's the primary word I would use to describe this movie: amateurish. It commits the cardinal sin of a suspense mystery, which is that it poses a lot of questions to the audience, such as what exactly the nature of the malevolent spirits haunting the forest is, why is there this random building that the characters have to hide in at night, how do you get out of there, just basic stuff like that. So that's fine, but the issue is that all of these questions posed by the movie remain entirely unresolved until the last little chunk of the movie. For most of the film, we know basically nothing, and that's the biggest sin a mystery can commit. In order to keep an audience engaged, you have to routinely and systematically dole out information to keep the audience guessing as to what's going on. If you don't do this, there isn't any thinking involved in the mystery, and it's unrewarding because there's no way to know anything unless the movie straight up tells you. When it does answer the questions, it does so in the most obvious and predictable way. A big ol' exposition dump. It's super unrewarding. In addition to this fundamental misunderstanding of a suspense mystery, the movie's script is atrocious. This part is the hardest to talk about if you haven't seen the movie because it's one of those things that I truly can't do justice solely by talking about it. You just have to hear some of these lines on your own, which you unfortunately can't do without watching this movie. So you're just gonna have to take my word on how horrendous it is. If you care for your life, you're going to have to run. We haven't much time. I mean, this is some mad embarrassing writing. There is no concept of show don't tell. Characters will tell you exactly what they're thinking and feeling at all times with zero emotion. That's the other thing. Some actors don't emote at all, like Dakota Fanning's character, and some are hilariously overacted, like Oliver Finnegan. Some of his lines are genuinely so bad that it gets to the point where I feel like his character should be written kind of tongue-in-cheek, like a character not meant to be taken seriously. But this movie plays everything so seriously that it just results in perfect movie hilarity. Dakota Fanning's character literally narrates all of her feelings. It's honestly the worst case of show don't tell I've seen in years. In fact, there's a bird in this movie, and it's honestly probably the best actor. At one point, Dakota Fanning tells that bird, for literally no reason, that it's been 15 years since her mom died. And then she gets a call 5 minutes later where her sister tells her it's been 15 years since her mom died. This writing is so bad. The dialogue in this movie is oddly inhuman. None of the lines are lines that real normal people would say. And I know that that's tough to fully wrap your head around, but you will understand if you've seen any of the recent movies directed by M. Night Shyamalan, the father of the director of this movie. He kind of has that same inhuman dialogue problem where all of his characters sound like Oblivion NPCs or something. It's really hard to explain if you haven't witnessed it yourself, but if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I hear you whispering. Planning on stealing something?
No, ma'am, we're not.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
I will say that this problem doesn't apply to M. Night Shyamalan's earlier films, such as The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs. Unbreakable is actually one of my favorite movies of all time, and I would love to discuss it, but I'm not going to get into a tangent. There's another point in this movie where one of the characters does something entirely drastic and literally says the words, "something had to change," which to me sounds like the script writer speaking directly to the audience. It sounds like the writer is saying, this is the point in movies where the status quo has to be shifted in order for the plot to progress. The writer literally couldn't think of any other way to progress the plot forward than to have a character do something completely crazy and tell it directly to the audience, which is extremely ineffective storytelling in my opinion. Another issue is that some of the characters could be completely cut from the movie, and I'm being literal here, nothing would change, which you definitely don't want when you have such a limited roster of characters. The characters all have their roles to participate in helping the others with, but these roles are never explored or used to distinguish the characters and make them interesting. Another thing I'd like to mention is the fact that this movie takes its time at the beginning, setting up a bunch of rules, which is totally fine. The issue is that it doesn't follow up on or make good use of any of them. For example, one of the rules that these characters live by is that they can't turn their back to the mirror, which is this big one-way mirror that comprises one of the walls of the random building in the middle of the forest that I mentioned earlier, which is where the characters live. But multiple times throughout the movie, characters will turn their back to the mirror with no consequences. It's like the movie just set that rule up to create artificial intrigue just to never pay it off or do anything interesting with it in any way. Apparently this movie is based on a book written by a guy named A.M. Shine, so maybe these rules are actually made good use of there. I don't know. I'm reviewing the movie, not the book. Another thing is that there are items that are introduced and that are never brought up again. The movie just forgot about them, I guess. They're not like Chekhov's guns or anything. Those are just a few examples of many. If I listed them all, we would be here all day. Like all suspense movies of this quality, there are a bunch of jump scares and the movie ends with zero resolution. Not that I want a sequel, although strangely, I kind of would watch it. This is one of those get drunk before you watch kind of movies. Although I've definitely never been drunk before, if I did, this would be the movie I would put on. There are so many stupid bits in this movie, like the fact that none of the characters had ever pulled out the rug in the building in months, which would have revealed a convenient trapdoor way earlier. The best part of this movie was actually probably the fake in-universe dating show scenes, which I oddly found myself kind of invested in. I don't know what that says about me. The interesting thing about this movie is that I can tell that there is an actual not bad movie hiding somewhere under this, but it's trapped under layers upon layers of inexperience. I'm not saying that the director got this job just because her dad is M. Night Shyamalan, but, well, maybe I am saying that nepotism played a factor in this. I mean, I'm just saying here, M. Night Shyamalan's name as producer shows up in the trailer and in some of the marketing videos before his daughter's credit as director, and his name is prominently featured in the poster. I'm not saying she just used daddy's money, but there's the facts. You draw your own conclusions. I look forward to seeing her mature as a filmmaker and hopefully improve. The reason I saw this movie in the first place was because I was staying over at a friend's house for his birthday, and we went to the theater, and this was the only thing playing. Here's a picture of his experience. I rest my case. Alright guys, expect a metric ton of videos in the following days. As I said, I'm going to try to review every movie released in 2024 that I saw to be all caught up. I'm sorry my posting schedule was so messed up this year. Next year, my reviews will be more on time, I promise. Go have a nice day, what's left of it. Peace.